to your English class. Today we are going to do the lesson Why the Auto Waits from your course book. Children, this chapter is a play. In this chapter we will read about a young girl and a young man who do not want to disclose their true identity. It does happen at times, children, that people they do not want to disclose their real identity in order to presume or assume a new one. Let us together read on this play and understand who the girl and the boy are and why do they not want to disclose their identities. Now coming to the play, children, the main characters that we will be seeing in the play are a young girl, a young man, a waitress and a chauffeur. Chauffeur means driver. The setting is in twilight. That means that it is late in the evening, about to get dark. The quiet corner of a city park in the 1920s. A girl sits alone on a bench reading her book. A large meshed veil hangs over her face. So it is late in the evening and we can see that a girl, she is sitting on the bench in a park and she is reading her book and her face is covered with a veil. Meshed means netted. And when she turns a page, the book slips from her hand and a young man who has been hovering nearby pounces upon it. So when she turns the page of the book slips from her hand and a young man who had been roaming about over there only, he pounces upon it. He tries to pick up the book to help the girl. He returns it with a gallant and hopeful air. With a gallant means with a courteous in a very gentle, manly manner. He hands it over to the girl. The girl says, "Thank you." The young man says, "Nice weather." "Yes." "Well," the girl says, "you may sit down if you like." The young man says, and he was very eager to talk to her. He says eagerly, "Are you sure? I don't want to interrupt your reading." So he says that, "Are you sure that you want me to sit down? I don't want to interrupt whatever you are reading." The girl says, "Really, sir, the light in any case is too bad for reading. I would prefer to talk." So since it was late in the evening, it was getting dark, she says that as it is, it's going to be dark right now. The light is very bad for reading. It's not good for the eyes. So it's good that if we can talk. The young man says, "Well, if you insist. You know, you've got to be the prettiest girl I've ever seen." So the young man immediately he admires her and he says that she was one of the prettiest girls that he had ever come across. The girl says, "Whoever you are, you must remember that I am a lady." And she says at once that whatever your name is or whosoever you are, you must remember that I am a lady and before talking to me, you should give it a thought. To which the young man apologizes. He says, "I'm sorry. I didn't mean to offend you. I just thought." Offend you means, he says, that I did not want to hurt you in any way. I'm really sorry. I apologize. The girl says, "Leave the subject." She says, "You leave this thing right here. Now, tell me about these people passing and crowding each way along these paths. Where are they going? Why do they hurry so? Are they happy?" So the girl, she says that she tells the man that, can you see so many people walking about in a hurry? Why do you think they are in a hurry? Who are these people? Why do they have to be in such a hurry all the time? Do you think they are happy? The young man says, "It is interesting to watch them, isn't it? The wonderful drama of life. Some are going to supper, or some to some other places. One can't help but wonder what their stories are." So the young man, taking equal interest, he says that it's actually very interesting to watch all these people moving around. And this is all a drama of life. Some people, they might be going for some dinner, some may be going to some other places, and one can't help wondering that what could their actual stories in life be, what are the lives all about. The girl says, yes, how fascinating they seem to me, rushing about with their petty little dreams. Petty means small. With their petty little dreams and their common worries. I come here to sit because here only I can be near the great, common, throbbing heart of humanity. Throbbing means beating. Can you imagine why I spoke to you, mister? Now she wants to know his name. So she says that these people, they really fascinate me, and I come and sit here in the park just in order to watch them, just in order to be among the common lot of the people. And then she says, can you imagine why I spoke to you, mister? Now she wants to know his name. He say, Parkinstacker. And your name? So he says that his name was Parkinstacker. And when he asks her name, he waits eager and hopeful, but she holds up a slender finger and smiles slightly. So when he asks her name, and he's eagerly waiting hopefully that she will reply, but then she holds up a finger and she gives him a smile. The girl says, no, you would recognize it immediately. It is simply impossible to keep one's name out of the papers. So, the girl refuses to tell her name to the man because she says that as soon as I'll tell you my name, you'll immediately get to know who I am because I'm very popular in the newspapers. Or even one's portrait. She says that even my portrait, my picture is often there in the newspaper. This veil and this hat, my maids of course, are my only protection. That means, she says, that everyone in the newspaper knows my face. My face is also known to all. So I wear this veil and my hat, which is actually my maid's. That is why I wear it, so that nobody around gets to know who I am. And to be honest, there are 5 or 6 names that belong in the Holy of Holies, and mine, by the accident of birth, is one of them. I spoke to you, Mr. Stackenpot. So she doesn't remember his name, and she wants it again. But then she says that even my name, it is amongst the most prominent ones that everyone knows. So I cannot disclose my name also to you. The young man, he gives his name once again. He says Parkinstacker. The girl says, Mr. Parkinstacker, because I wanted to talk for once with a real person, one unspoiled by the gloss of wealth and supposed social superiority, you have no idea how weary I am, weary, tired, how weary I am of it, of the jewels, of travel, of society, of luxury, of all kinds, and of the people who surround me, dancing like little marionettes, all cut from the same pattern. So she says that, do you know why I started talking to you? It is only because I am tired of being in the high society, of only all the time talking about jewels, about travel, about society, about luxuries of life. I wanted to talk to a man who is unspoiled, who is not wealthy, who is not rich, and who doesn't think himself to be very superior. The young man says, I always had the idea that money must be a pretty good thing. So the young man, he says, I always thought that being rich was something very fortunate. Don't you think so? The girl says, you want some of it certainly. But when you have so many millions, that she concludes the sentence with a gesture of despair. It is the sameness of it that bores one. Drivers, dinners, theaters, balls, suppers, balls, dinners, more balls, and this use of royal me to mean I nearly drives me mad. It doesn't sound royal, but stupid to me. So she says that you need money, of course, you need it to some extent, but when you have so many millions of rupees, so many millions of dollars and pounds, then it is the sameness that bores. All the time drives, going out for long drives, going out for dinners, going out for theaters, going out for ball, for suppers, then again more balls, meeting more people all the time. And these things, they really drive me mad, and I find them to be rather stupid. The young man says, You know, I've always liked to read up on the habits and customs of the wealthy class. I consider myself a bit of a connoisseur on the subject, but I like to have my information accurate. Now, I've heard the royalty use we and not me to mean I. So he says that the young man says, I always love to read about the rich people, about the wealthy people, about the kind of habits they have, of their customs, their life, their class. And one thing that I've got to know about them is that they don't use I, they don't use the pronoun I, they use the pronoun we for themselves. The girl gives a musical laugh of genuine amusement. She's really amused at his talk. She says, You must understand that we depend for our amusement on novelties. Novelties means new things. Just now, it is a fad. Fad is a fashion. Okay. A fad among modern royalty to use me rather than we to mean I. So she says, you know what, the latest development is that in the in the elite class of people, in the royal people, in the rich people, in the rich society people, they address themselves as me rather than we to mean I. The idea was started by a visiting prince of Tartary while dining at the Waldorf. It will soon give way to some other whim. Just as at a dinner party this week on Madison Avenue, a green kid glove was laid by the plate of each guest to be put on and used while eating olives. So she says that right now this is going on, and latest one more is on the way. She says that recently I attended a dinner party at Madison Avenue, and over there was a green glove by the table along with the plate, which was to be worn while eating olives. The young man says, I see. The girl says, the common public does not know of these special habits of the inner circle, of course. Now, what do we understand by inner circle? A small group of people that are within a large group. Okay, and they have an influence over special information. So that is the inner circle. That is very few people who share different things. Young man says, of course, it is all quite fascinating. I have always wanted to witness firsthand the rituals of the elite. Rituals, the customs of the elite, of the rich class. He says, I had always wanted to know about their customs. The girl says, we are drawn to that which we do not understand. So the girl, in high air, flaunting, she says that yes, it is always there, that we are always attracted to the things that we have not come across. So maybe that is why you want to know about the rich. The young man says, I guess that's true. So he acknowledges, he says, yes, that's right, I think that's true. The girl says, I've always thought if I should ever love someone, it would be one who is not wealthy, but what society expects from me will prove stronger than what I want. Just now I am besieged by two suitors. She says that, you know what, I have always thought of loving someone who is not wealthy, but then to the class that I belong, to the rich society that I belong, is going to prove to be more powerful than what I really want. And right now I have two suitors, two people, two men, two young men who want to marry me. One is a Grand Duke of a German principality, known to be a cruel man. The other is an English marquis, so cold and hungry for wealth that I prefer even a diabolical nature of the Duke. What is it that makes me tell you these things, Mr. Packenwacker? So she says that she has two gentlemen who wanted to marry her. One was the Grand Duke of a German principality, that is an area ruled by a prince, and he is known to be very cruel. But then there's another who is an English marquis, and marquis means a European man of a very high rank. And she says that he's so cold and he's so hungry for wealth, he's such a greedy person, that I will prefer the Duke, that is the first one, who is a cruel man. And then she again wonders that why am I talking to you about all of this? The young man corrects his name. He says, Parkenstacker. The girl says, of course. Young man says, I don't know why you should bare your soul to a common man like me. Bare your soul? Why are you revealing all that is there in your heart and mind to a common man like me? But you can't know how much I appreciate it. But the young man says, I'm really enjoying the way you are telling me about everything. The girl looks at him with a calm, impersonal look that befits the difference in their social standing. So, the girl looks at him with a look that differentiates them at the social level. The girl says, what is your line of business, if you don't mind my asking? The young man says, a very humble one, a very humble one, a very simple one, not a very extraordinarily flourishing business, no. But I hope to rise in the world someday. There is so much that I want to do. So the man says that I am enthusiastic about doing a lot through my life, but let's see when and how. The girl says, I admire your enthusiasm. I myself can find very little to be enthused about, burdened as I am, but the constant demands of by the constant demands of my class. So the girl says, I really admire your enthusiasm, your zeal towards life, but I, as a person, I am not very enthusiastic about things because of all the burden of the society that I stay in. The man says, did you really mean it when you said you could love a man of a lowly station? Lowly station means a common man, not a very rich and wealthy man. He says that since you belong to the elite class of the society, do you really think you can marry a man who is not rich? The girl says, indeed I did, but I said might. Why only might? The man says. Well, there is a Grand Duke and the Marquis to think of, you know. So she says that there are people who want to marry me, so I have to give it a thought first. But you've said yourself they are so cold. They are so cold that they are not loving, they are not caring. The girl says, I'm sure you understand when I say there are certain expectations of a young lady in my position. It would be such a disappointment to my family if I were to marry a commoner. You simply cannot imagine the scandal that it would cause. All the magazines would write about it. I might even be cut off from my family fortune. And yet, no profession could be too humble if the man I loved were all that I wish him to be. So, she says that of course I said that I might marry a man who is not wealthy, But a lady at my position, expectation of the family and the society are very high. And she says that if she would ever happen to marry a common man, it would immediately be published in the magazines, in the papers, and she might also be cut out from the family fortune. Her parents, her family might disown her for the action. And yet she says that she would love to marry a common man. The young man says, I work at a restaurant. And the girl shrinks slightly, that she doesn't like the idea. And the girl says, not as a waiter. She says, do you work as a waiter over there? Thank you, children. Now, that was all for today. It was half of the play. I hope all of you have understood. Please go through the text simultaneously in your course books. In case of any doubts or queries, do post your queries, your questions in the comment section of the Google Classroom. Till then, stay safe. God bless you all.